let's talk about Project Hail Mary for a second and how this is probably one of my favorite book to film adaptations, maybe like ever. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, the Bronson Sky Library. Today's video is going to be my review / book to film analysis video of the film adaptation to Project Hail Mary. So I obviously haven't read every book with an adaptation or have seen all film adaptations, so I can't really say that it's the best adaptation of all time, but it's definitely secured like top spot on my list of favorite adaptations, and here's why. So it kept the foundation of the story the exact same, and then it kept the heart and soul and spirit of the book, which I think personally is one of the most important parts of creating a well-done book-to-screen adaptation. I want to preface this video and this review with the fact that I'm kind of the reader and movie watcher that will go into a movie adaptation not caring how much they take out and how much they've changed. I go into like book-to-film adaptations for the movie itself, and not because I'm hoping for the most faithful adaptation. I know films change things or add things because that's what the medium is. Like the movies can't be the novel because they rely on visuals to tell the story, which novels don't. They usually just rely on words, which you then visualize yourself. With that said, I still love when a movie can manage to pull off a faithful adaptation, and I feel like this is what Project Hail Mary did. Also, this review will be spoilery because I want to talk about the book to film adaptation aspect and be able to talk about certain scenes. So if you don't want spoilers, if you haven't watched the movie or read the book or anything like that, I would unfortunately stop here. So I mentioned that the reason why Project Hail Mary I found the film to be a really good adaptation is because it kept the basic foundation of the book. So in the book, the basic plot of the story is we have this thing that's eating at the sun and other stars in the solar system called astrophage. And in the next like 30 years, they say, the Earth and everyone will like die, basically. So the government gathers a team of scientists to figure out what this astrophage is, and they end up sending 3 people into space to gather information on how to stop astrophage from killing the sun, to then send all that information back to Earth so they can, save Earth. And one of those 3 people is our main character, Ryland Grace. And in the film, it's the exact same plot, like the exact same foundation. And the movie didn't change that whatsoever. And like even the scenes from the book were pretty much the same in the movie. And I think keeping the foundation the same is key to potentially having an amazing adaptation. For example, with the Percy Jackson films, they completely changed the foundation. Like completely changed the foundation and like the plot of the book. And while the movie was very entertaining, like I found it entertaining, it was fun, it was a fun watch, it just was not faithful at all because they changed the fundamentals of the plot that they weren't able to do anything like with the rest of the story. Like they weren't able to do the rest of the films pretty much because they destroyed the foundation of like the series. So yeah, while I found it pretty enjoyable, it's not a good adaptation at all. But with Project Hail Mary, they just kept that foundation and they were able to make a faithful adaptation. Now, obviously, the movie Project Hail Mary did change some scenes to add a little humor into it, like the moment where Rocky shows Ryland his eating habits in the film, which he did not show him in the book. Or they'd add a scene like when Ryland gets to see Rocky's ship, which you also, like, I don't think he got to see that in the book. They also made Strat's character in the film a little softer than what she is in the book, and I know that bothered some. It didn't bother me personally, but because I think actors are able to have their own view on a interpretation. They have their own interpretation of the character, and they're allowed to do that. So maybe the actor did the same with Strat, or maybe even the filmmakers decided, like, hey, we're gonna have her a little softer, like the director might have been like that, and like that is totally okay. Like, the director has that artistic vision. Like, the filmmakers can do that. Like, that is their prerogative. They even glossed over a lot of the science, which I know was and is a sore spot for a lot of readers out there. For me, that didn't really bother me. So anyway, but for the most part, a lot of, like, even though they had like these like added or changed scenes, for the most part, a lot of what was in the film was also in the book, and they managed, in my humble opinion, to deliver a lot of these beloved scenes in the book in like a magnificent way in the film. I personally really enjoyed how they executed these scenes from the book to like film. Like, I thought it was glorious. Going back to the conversation about the science being glossed over, I've seen a lot of readers out there who felt like the film would have been easier to understand if certain parts of the science wasn't cut down or cut out. But for me, I kind of feel the opposite, because I feel like the decision to cut down on the science was, one, to obviously like condense the film to 2.5 hours, but two, to also make the film a little more accessible for those who haven't read the book. I felt like the movie is a movie that anyone could enjoy. Yeah, I felt like it's a movie that anybody could enjoy despite not having read the novel. And I also think that those who haven't read the book are still able to understand the film just fine. Like, my sister, who actually DNF'd the book because of the science, she ended up loving the film and understanding the film, I think. I do think, though, that the film didn't hold your hand with anything. So there are moments where you'll have to pay closer attention to understand. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, though. I actually think that it's a good thing that this film didn't hold our hand, because films are supposed to be a visual medium, and having something told to you in a film isn't as impactful. I'm not sure if that's like the right word for this, but like, being told something isn't the greatest way at storytelling when it comes to film. I mean, obviously there are things that will have to be told to you, and there were things in this film that were told to you, but a lot of the other things that I'm mentioning, they weren't told to you specifically. They were just shown in visual storytelling, and I feel like the film did that really well. It didn't hold your hand and be like, this is what is happening to Ryland. So like, for example, the reasons for why Ryland is in a coma at the beginning of the book, and the way he gains his memories back through flashbacks, aren't explained to us through words in the film, but rather it's shown to us through visuals mostly. I know that the coma was talked about between Ryland and Strat, but the way that the film explains Ryland gaining his memories back is through the film's visuals. So close to the beginning of the film, we see Ryland in the ship with his like long hair and beard, and he's questioning who he is, and like he sees something that's sciencey, and he's like, oh, that's this, and he goes, how do I know that, right? And then we get this medium shot of him like grasping his head as if like a headache was coming on, and then the scene blurs, and then it fades into another blurry scene that eventually focuses on him as a teacher back home, like a middle school teacher. And this scene and like this visual indicates to the audience that what we're seeing is also what he's seeing. And then throughout the film, we'll sometimes see him at his like whiteboard writing down things that he's remembering like right after a flashback just happened. So we'll see like him back on Earth, and then it moves back to the ship and he's like at the whiteboard writing down what he just remembered. And then we'll also see, like after we see, there was one time after we saw a flashback of Strat betraying Ryland, or Grace, I guess you could call him Grace. Anyway, after we see Strat betraying him, we then get, like, she betrays him by putting him into the coma and making him go on the space mission even though he didn't want to. Like, it's out of, like, he hasn't given his consent. Anyway, so after we see that flashback, we then go back to the ship where he is now, and we see his reaction shots to it. We see that look of betrayal and sadness in his face, and then we see him back in his ship, because when we see his reaction shots, he's actually in Rocky's ship. Anyway, so then when he's back on his ship, we then also see him sitting on the ground with his head in his hands, and these moments, these visuals, is the film showing the audience that he's regaining these memories. So to me, that's what great storytelling and filmmaking is these visuals and stuff showing us that this is what is happening. And now granted, it did take me like the second watch through to catch those reaction shots and catch those like whiteboard moments. And I was like, oh, yeah, these are moments that he's regaining his memory. And I do understand that I did read the book, so I did, like, understand that, like, I inherently understood it because I had read the book. And, like, I knew that these moments are him, like, regaining his memories and stuff. However, I do think the film did a really good job at using visuals to help the audience understand that these are flashbacks and that he regains his memory as time goes on and stuff like that. So, yeah. Hopefully all that made sense. So yeah, the film doesn't hold your hand, it just shows through visuals, and like, it doesn't always tell you things, which I think is, like, they have a good balance of show versus tell in the film. And I think that's really great storytelling, and that's one of the reasons why I really, really enjoyed this film adaptation, is because of all of the visuals. Anyway, that was a lot. So again, for me, everything that they changed wasn't that big of a deal for me. These changes, I felt the added scenes just felt justified to me, because I felt like they added to the story. They didn't take away from the story at all, which I think is another good indication of a great adaptation, is like, are these changes and added scenes taking away from the story, or are they adding to the story? So if they add to the story, I think that still indicates a good adaptation, because like the filmmakers are taking liberties but also still keeping to the foundation. Like, they have that nice balance of, this is adding to the story but it's still keeping the foundation the same, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, anyway, now on to the second thing I mentioned, is why I think this is like the best adaptation ever, is it kept the heart and soul and spirit of the book the same. And that would be Rocky and Ryland's relationship. So I found that the focus of the film was more on their relationship rather than on the science of it all. And I think that's, to me, one of the most important parts of the story. Like, the book and the movie, it's not the plot, in my opinion. It's the characters and their bond with one another and their like personal growth throughout the story. I personally felt like if they had kept the focus more on the science during those bonding moments between the two, the film wouldn't have had the same impact that the book does. So, for example, when they are first learning how to communicate, the book goes into more detail on how they end up like being able to understand and talk to each other, since the book has room to do that, but the film honestly like kind of rushes through the science of how they are able to do it, and it focuses more on the actual conversations they have because it's such a bonding moment for them. It's like their first initial bonding moment, which is honestly, to me, crucial to the story. And because this is a film, they didn't have as much time to expand on all the science while also keeping the bonding moments. So they kept the focus on the bond between Rocky and Ryland while balancing it out with the basic foundation of the story. If any of that makes sense. It also just made me happy seeing all the bonding moments between them in the movie, because it was so wholesome seeing Grace and Ryland showing visuals of Earth to Rocky, being like, this is a tree you can like climb and climb and climb it, and this is the ocean, and this is a foggy day. Oh, how I like a foggy day. And like, I just love scenes like that. And I loved the celebration scene where Ryland Grace has his like cone hat on and Rocky has his like little celebration outfit on. I also loved the hugging scenes where Grace shows Rocky what a hug is. I especially loved the second time Grace hugs Rocky because of how tender it was and how Rocky just like doesn't question it this time. He just leans into the hug. And then the ending where like Grace and Rocky talk about him going home to Earth, but Grace essentially decides to stay where he can be with his buddy Rocky and be able to teach little Rocky aliens. It was beautiful. Honestly, like, all of it was beautiful. I just loved how wholesome and amazing their relationship was. It was like, it seriously is the heart and soul of the book, and they just kept it, and they just executed it stunningly in the film. So I was very, very happy about that. So before I finish off my review, I also wanted to talk about the visuals and the film score, because I found those two things to have such a huge impact on the emotions the film created within the audience, aka me. So there's one scene where in the film where Grace goes out of the ship and into the like Petrova line, that's what they call like the line of astrophage, and we just see like these bright red dots like everywhere surrounding him, and it's like visually stunning. We also see him in front of this like big beautiful planet that he ends up calling Adrian, and we just see him taking all of this in and enjoying it, and Rocky's like, bro, what the hell are you doing? And like Grace just responds with, I'm having a moment. And then the scene continues with him having this moment. And the score to go along with these beautiful visuals and this beautiful moment Grace is having just adds so much emotion to the scene. It was so beautiful. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I was having a moment with Ryland. I was like, yes, I'm having this moment too, bro. And that just goes along with all of the scenes, like especially like even the scenes that I mentioned earlier. Every scene had such beautiful visuals, and like the cinematography is just so stunning, and like the score, it matched the scene perfectly, and it like matched the emotions, and it was so good. It was so good, okay? Like, just absolutely stunning, honestly. And I left the theater both times so damn happy. Like, throughout film school, I would occasionally be taught that the filmmaker's job is to manipulate the audience into feeling a certain way. And the film, like this film, accomplished just that. Like, throughout the entire film, I felt so many different emotions. I felt all the emotions that Grace was going through what Rocky was going through. I felt happy, sad. Honestly, I just felt all of the emotions. And by the end, I left feeling happy and grateful for my relationships and grateful for just my life in general. I honestly left the theater feeling so wholesome, and that was the film's doing. Like, the film left me feeling that way, and it was so good. So, anyway, with all that being said, my final statement is this. Project Hail Mary is a damn near perfect film for me, and you should all go see it for all of the reasons I mentioned in this video. And I realize that those watching have probably already seen the film and have read the book because this is a spoilery video, but my statement still stands. So anyway, I'm gonna go now. Hopefully all of that made sense. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below your thoughts on the film so we can discuss, like, did you like it? Did you think it was a great adaptation? Did you hate it? Was it awful for you? Let's discuss. And if you want to follow along in my reading and film journey on my other social media accounts, I will have them linked in the description. So, yeah. Hopefully all that made sense. I will see you guys again soon. All right. Bye. Read and watch Project Hail Mary.